Hello, welcome to our worship facility webinar, How to Use Visuals to Increase Engagement, sponsored by Refresh LED, featuring Josh Dominguez and Matt Laymon. I'm Gene Less, editor of Worship Facility.
Hey, we are excited for this webinar. Thanks for jumping on with us. We are talking about how to use visuals to increase engagement. But first, let's introduce ourselves. My name is Josh. I'm the owner of Refresh LED, not only in the LED industry, but I'm also a worship leader. I'm also, on stage leading worship or behind the scenes. I've been a worship pastor for a number of years in different states across the U.S. So I'm excited to talk about this very topic that we're going to dive into. And we have Matt. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Matt Laymon. I'm the events director here at Refresh. And before Refresh, I was a creative pastor for the last 10, 15 years. And so I have a lot of experience working with churches. And so I'm excited to talk to you guys today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love Matt's story. Matt was actually a client of ours here at Refresh before coming in as our events director. So a lot of background here in the just the creative space and connecting with people. And really that's our heart today, is that you can take away some resources, some practical tools that you can literally implement into your church, into your ministry, into your business today. And so without further ado, let's dive into it. Hopefully you have access to view the presentation here, and just also know if you have to step away and you have to, you have to handle meetings or whatever you have going on, you could always come back and watch this. We'll have this presentation on download for you as well. So we're talking again about using visual creativity to increase engagement. So why is it important to increase engagement at our churches? Matt, you've been a creative director, so you've had to think through this process before Sunday, before Wednesday. What does that process look like for you guys?
Yeah, so in the creative space, a lot of that starts 6 months, 9 months out. I mean, when you're thinking about Easter, we're planning from 9 months, 6 to 9 months. So we have the initial meeting. And in that initial meeting, we're coming up with ideas, kind of throwing darts at a wall. And then we're trying to hone that down to the pastor's vision and what he's wanting to really accomplish, what he's wanting to really speak to through the Word of God through Easter weekend, and the goals that he wants to accomplish. Well, out of that, then you start reverse engineering that to the actual game day, and really looking at what are we doing from the time people walk in the building, not just graphics on the screen. What are we doing from a marketing standpoint? What are we doing for signage? What are we doing for visual content that we want on the LED wall? On and on, because we're getting stories that talk about life change that is going to go on the LED wall. That takes weeks and months to edit and to get all these stories and put these together. Absolutely. So this is a big process when you're talking about using visual creativity within the church. It's not just something you go in Canva and create the day before, and those days are really the days of old now.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you saying is being very intentional about everything that you're doing. That way it's not just thrown together. And if you're here watching, I commend you, because that means that you care, that you want to be intentional, you want to grow, and we're excited for that. So let's talk about why engagement is really important when you're thinking through all of this. Well, let's think about it. Everywhere you go, you're being hit with advertisements, billboards, you're on Spotify, you're getting hit with visuals, or you're on YouTube. It doesn't matter where you are, you have a lot of people trying to get your attention. And then to add on that, people come to our churches and they're not free of mind. They're not coming in burdenless. They're walking in with bills that are lingering over them. Maybe just getting to the church building was a massive challenge. And, I have 5 kids and they're 12 and under. So getting to the church is a fun activity every week. And you can imagine that just getting them into the church, my wife and I are like, okay, we made it. But now we got to get them checked in. So getting to people's hearts and minds when they walk in the door is really important.
Absolutely. I think that engagement here starts before they even walk in the building. Sure. I mean, you're talking people need to be engaged they say that the website and social media is the new online lobby. That people check you out before you even walk in the door, and they're going to check out like, hey, I like this church. Oh, they got some cool stuff going. My family can relate to that. Okay, we want to go there. Right. So it's really important that you look at it, all these different demographics of content that you need to put on social media, on your website. And there's so many different levels to that. You got to think TikTok, you know, what are you doing to reach? Are you just posting the same videos from Reels on TikTok? Well, you're reaching a demographic, but you're not reaching the demographic that is going to be engaged by TikTok. And then you look at Facebook, you're going to, you can post just a regular graphic like we always have, and you're going to get engagement because it's for a different an older demographic.
That's true.
So then you got Instagram, which is Reels. Reels are the highest grossing engagement because they show up in algorithms throughout younger people. Yeah. And then they click on them, whether it's a sermon highlighter or an info video, things like that are going to story that's going to take them to a larger platform.
And that's a good point. And I know we can spend all day just talking about social media, and we can go into all kinds of different directions. I will say this, chances are you have a social media account for your church or business. And one thing that we have been trying to do better with is providing valuable content that people can actually use. Because the typical trap that most churches and businesses fall into is they put out content that's all about them. Come to our event, look what we did, we had an awesome week, we. But what about the viewer that's viewing your content? What can they take and actually use?
Absolutely.
So I would encourage you, if you have social media, you have YouTube, and you are intentional about putting content out there, number one, I think that's awesome. You're doing a great job getting some content out there, but think about what you're putting out there. How can the person on the other side of the screen take what you're putting out into the world and actually use it in their everyday lives? And that's how you are going to engage with your current congregation and even new people that are considering coming to your church to check you out, because before they get there, you've already added so much value to their life. You're giving them 3 things to pray about today, or hey, here's a great way to share the gospel, or here's 3 ways you can share the gospel with your kids. You know, just practical things that they can put into everyday lives.
Absolutely.
It's awesome.
Just remember that your platforms are not a billboard. They're a place for engagement. And when you becomes a billboard, people see white noise.
Absolutely. So let's talk about attention spans, because this is a really interesting fact to talk about. How long can we pay attention for? And this is a funny slide here, because back in 2000, the average attention span was 12 seconds. So now we're talking about more when people are in your building, you're in a service setting, and obviously we have a lot of distractions in our own personal lives, and that's important to understand. But why do you think from 2000 to now, it's gone from 12 seconds to 8 seconds?
It's the social media age. I mean, you look at TikToks. I mean, if you're scrolling through TikTok or Instagram or Reels, you literally have about 5 to 8 seconds to grab somebody's attention, or they're moving on. So you better catch that moment,
right?
Or you're not gonna have them engaged to stay longer to watch the whole reel or the whole TikTok video, because they're like, oh, that's boring. Okay, that's funny, but I'm gonna keep going. Right. There's not a memorable moment that was intentional. So it's very important to grab people's attention,
especially in the service.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, I mean, the temptation is always to pull your phone out and go whatever direction on your phone. And, you know, it's funny at the bottom right of this slide, the gold, I don't know how they found out about the goldfish that can keep an attention span for 9 seconds. How do you think they figured that out?
I don't know.
I'm sure some college, university had fun with that one.
But there's so much truth in that, because even when you're listening to the pastor preach, you know, you're constantly, your mind's listening, but you're also thinking about, oh, did I turn off the Instapot? Did I turn it on for lunch? Did I do this? Oh, let me, you know, I'm now checking a text message, and oh, back to the message, you know, and it's just constantly. So you have to keep people's attention.
Yeah. Or the big one, what are we doing for lunch?
Yeah, exactly.
And if that's you, you know who you are. And we've all done it, all right? So we're not perfect here. But it's important you know your church DNA as well, because when you are planning, you had mentioned early on, 6 to 9 months, that's really good planning. I think most churches might be in the 3 to 4 week, or maybe you're in the, hey, we're on an every week type of basis, and that's okay. But whatever it is you're planning, it's really important to know your church's DNA. Who is out there in those seats, and how can you tailor those messages and those, even the music and the lighting. We're going to talk about some stage design ideas and foyer and whatnot. But it's important to, number one, understand that. And if we go into the generations of people and what they have gone through and kind of what world they grew up in, it's interesting to be able to look at that, and now we can tailor our messages to those people. So on the slide here, we have, you know, we fall into the millennial. I was born in '83, and 81. I got my first cell phone at 18. How old were you when you got your phone?
I think probably 17 or 18.
Okay. So most of our adult life, we've had phones.
Oh, yeah.
And then we look at our kids that are either in the Alpha generation or Gen Z. They've grown up with phones their entire lives, which is probably why attention span has gone down a pretty good amount.
Absolutely.
And so when we understand that, hey, maybe your church is more of the Gen X generation from 1965 to 1980, that's okay. But as long as you can identify that's the bulk of who you're serving at your church, now you can take your messages and your visuals and your even the verbiage that you use to communicate with those people.
Right. So, I remember growing up, we had this little thing, you know, called Where's Waldo?
Yeah.
You know, you had this like picture, and you like had to find where Waldo was and all the mass of people. And a couple of the churches that I was a part of, we had this, how do we find our demographic? Because we wanted to reach people. And we had to find out who our Waldo was. Like, he's in the middle of the crowd. He comes in on Sunday. He's got a family, just like you were talking about. He barely got there. He probably had a fight in the van, like on the way there. Like, they were just making it a church. But how are we going to reach that man? How are we going to reach that family? You know, with what we're doing. How can we be relatable but not change the message? Right. The message never changes, but how can we be relatable to reach them and bring them in to be comfortable here? And you know, it's the presence of God, the number one, but then from there, the things that we're doing.
Absolutely. And if your church is primarily Gen Zs who have grown up with phones their entire lives, we're going to talk about ways you can integrate phone technology and visuals to better suit your audience there. And I think it's important that we just get a baseline understanding of who you're serving, even if you're a business. And I'm a kind of occasionally touch on business as well, because I want this content and this information to be useful for you too. You know, if you have people coming into your retail store or your online business, how are you engaging with that audience? And do you even know who your audience is? And if not, I think it's important to find out who it is that you're serving. And as we go on, just a quick stat, 95% of us retain information better when we use video. And obviously that's true. Everything has gone with video. You know, social posts with just a picture or not as relevant as video. And I think we can all agree with that statistic. All right, so we're gonna do an experiment. And on your slide, you're gonna have a play button. You're gonna see somebody standing or hanging from the edge of the building. So this experiment, we've done it in a live setting before and worked out great. But if you are watching this, I want you to click play, and I want you to watch this for just 10 seconds. You don't have to watch the whole video. If you want to watch it longer, feel free to do that later on. But for the sake of right now, go ahead and hit play, watch the video. Okay, you can go ahead and stop the video. And again, you can watch it further later on if you want to. Now, I want you to find somebody close by to you. And maybe you do this later on, and that's totally cool. Maybe it's your husband, wife, friend, pastor, business partner, whatever it is, and explain to them what you watched. And just you try to use your words the best you can, use the best action words and everything that you felt and experienced. Give them everything that you experienced verbally. And then what you're going to do next is, after you've explained what you watched, you're going to have them watch the video. Now, what I want you to look out for when you do this experiment, I want you to ask them, did you feel anything different or stronger when they watched the video versus when they just heard it? And I think that's going to be, when we did this in a live setting, we were shocked at, how much greater of a response we saw. We had one guy physically jump back and like, no, push stop. And I was like, what did you feel? And you were there too.
He was scared.
Yeah,
he was fearful.
Like, I felt like I was there on the building. Yeah. I felt like I got afraid of heights in that moment, just watching it on his screen. He was even watching it on his phone. And obviously the moral of the story here is you can interact with people's emotions in their heart and their mind, and even how they physically feel through a video format.
This past weekend, I was in an Easter service. Okay. This is perfect segue. Yeah. So I was in an Easter service. The message was impactful, but towards his invitation for salvation, he showed this video of a lady that her 13-year-old daughter passed away in a ski accident. She gave all 5 of her organs to different people, but her heart went to this lady in Phoenix, Arizona. Okay. And this is all non-disclosive. You're not supposed to know any of this information. Who has your heart? Well, somehow she found out who the lady that had the heart, because she wanted to hear the heart. So they share this story. It's a NBC Today show, shows it, the whole thing. And I mean, not a dry eye. Because this lady got to meet the lady that had her daughter's heart, and she got to hear it. But it was so impactful that it ties straight into God's love for us. And it was just a moment of like tying a video, and why it's so important to use video in your messages, whether in your business, to engage people.
So they showed that video in the service.
In the service.
Now, how do you think it would have been? How impactful do you think it would have been if they just showed? Or not show the video, if he verbalized that video?
I think we would have got the story, but to see it, to see the tears, to see the emotion that came behind that, it tied everything to the salvation message. And it was just so impactful.
So Matt, that sounds like it was a very impactful time of the service. My question is, how do you think that would have gone across, or how it would have been communicated if he just verbalized that story as opposed to doing what he did?
I honestly, like, he could have shown pictures and told the story, but it wouldn't have been as engaging and impactful. What it did was brought me into the moment, and bringing me into the moment made me understand God's love for me at a different level.
That's such a good way to think about it. Bring people into the moment.
Absolutely.
So the moment of the story, even if you're a pastor and you're sharing a story out of the passages, how can you bring them into it? And we're going to talk about that with the 5 senses: hearing it, feeling it, seeing it, the whole gamut of all of our senses. Video accomplishes a lot of that.
Absolutely.
And we'll go into that. So, hey, Matt, let's talk about 4 practical tips that they can use this weekend and they can put into their services or into their business.
Absolutely.
Cool. So the first one we're going to talk about is how to connect all 5 senses. If you're looking at your slide here, you'll see, obviously, you should know our 5 senses are hearing, smelling, visuals, touch, and what's the other one? Lighting.
Lighting.
Yes. So why is this important? And not just in your auditorium or in your lobby, but why is it important to try and connect with all 5?
It goes back to engagement. Like, when you are doing this, you're going to find your engagement with people goes to another level, because they're going in places every single day that companies are using this. But why not use it for the gospel? Like, why not go ahead and bring that into the church?
Right.
Or, because businesses are doing it all over the world.
Yeah. Yeah, it's important. You think about what restaurants or what stores that you go into frequently, and think about the lighting that they have displayed. Maybe it's dim, maybe it's ultra bright. Maybe they have music playing. Maybe they have a certain smell that you connect. When you smell that other places, you're like, hey, that reminds me of that restaurant, or that reminds me of that store. And I've had that happen so many times, and it's obviously very intentional, because the second people walk into your space, you want them forgetting about everything else, and you want them to be brought into whatever it is you're presenting or whatever your message is. So I want you to think about your lobbies, your space, and maybe you walk into your space with fresh eyes. And I know what I've done before. If I've asked my wife to come in, because my wife isn't here a lot, and I'll ask her, hey, can you just come in? Just give me your fresh eyes. Give me your thoughts, your knee-jerk reaction thoughts. And what do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel?
Absolutely.
And that's such a valuable input to receive, because then you can make tangible changes.
Definitely ask yourself, what atmosphere are you setting? What kind of atmosphere you're setting, whether it's your business, church, whatever it is, with the senses.
Absolutely. That's a really good question to ask yourself. What's your goal? What atmosphere are you setting? You want to set an excited atmosphere. When people get there, you're kind of pumping them up to be there. And a lot of times you walk into a sports arena. You know, you're a sports guy, you love basketball.
Oh, yeah.
And when you walk into an arena, the music is pumping, you see the players doing their practice, you can hear all the sounds of the basketballs hitting the court as the players are warming up. You can smell the hot dogs and the popcorn, and there's just this whole environment, and it's an experience when you go to a sports game.
It is. And
in that same way, and that's very intentional, because they want you to come back. They want you to leave feeling excited and pumped up, and you want to come back for more. Absolutely. And the next slide that we're going to go into talks about everything that you do says something about you. It says something about your organization. It says a lot about how much you care. And inadvertently, when you see a store, many of you have probably been into a restaurant. I know I've been into spaces, and you see a trash can kind of overflowing. You see some old extension cords just laying out. You see some things, and it inadvertently attributes to your judgment or how you will
you
come
don't
back.
care.
Yeah, exactly does. Yeah. So talk about that from a creative space, and from a, maybe some of you have connections, pastors. I've seen some churches have first impressions, leaders and whatnot.
Absolutely. I think that, several churches I've been on staff at, we had a first impressions coach or director, and their whole job was in VIP when they walk in. If you're brand new, that experience of welcoming them from the time they come in the parking lot with signage that says turn on your lights to get to the VIP area, so you have up front seat, parking. They help you get your kids to kids ministry, especially if you're a family, and you, like I said, you're on that drive to church. Took you 2 hours to get ready, and everybody's pants on, the toddlers and all that stuff. It's not easy, okay? It's a real thing, right?
Yeah, I know.
I have teenagers, so I don't really know anymore. But it's still getting them out of bed.
Right.
So, but it's important because it sets the atmosphere from the time they walk in that they're relaxed. That they're not uptight, because in days past, they wouldn't even be relaxed until halfway through worship, because their mind is like 90 miles an hour. They're still reeling from the whole experience of getting to church. And then now it becomes less where they can like calm down. Like, oh, I have somebody to help me. They're going to help me to kids. They're going to help me check in my kids. Oh, it's easy to check in my kids. Now I can go relax and hear God's word and really press into what God's wanting to say to me for my life. And it's all those things that make people bring their guards down, and the persona of church and the church hurt and those things like that bring those guards down to help them receive the word of God.
Yeah, absolutely. How many of you can relate with feeling a sense of relaxation when you smell coffee?
Absolutely.
Sometimes I can just open the can of grounds in my house, and it just, I don't know what it does to my psyche, but I'm just relaxed. I'm more inspired. I'm more creative.
Absolutely.
And, I know some of you might have coffee bars. You might have little coffee connections or Hebrews. If you have a Hebrews, please comment. I think it's kind of funny. But yeah, so maybe it's coffee. And when a mom's walking in, and you had mentioned just how stressful it can be just getting to the point of checking in your kids, think about what people are experiencing. What are they seeing with their eyes? What are they smelling? Is there a clear signage on where to go? I mean, you might be a regular attendee, but sometimes things change and the church makes certain changes or decisions, or, hey, we're going to do this in this classroom, and, maybe the coffee cart's over here instead of over here. Is there clear signage? So somebody's walking in with 3 kids hanging on their arms, knows exactly where to go. Maybe there's people there to even help, guide, and direct. What smells are they smelling? Maybe your coffee area can be strategically near the entrance, so they know, okay, I'm gonna check in my kid, I'm getting my coffee, go sit down, and when that's intentionally thought out, it just adds to the overall experience of your guest. And I think it's very important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if you're looking at these 2 pictures on this slide, I want you to ask yourself, if you're sitting in that pew, which one of those 2 settings are more inviting and inspire you to be drawn into it? What would you say?
I would say the one on the right. It's the lighting. It's how it's set. It looks inviting. It looks welcoming. And I think it allows you to engage more in the service.
Yeah, it draws you in. Yeah, so if you're even before service, maybe you haven't even started your service, and I'm sure many of you are already taking advantage of that time. For people that are there early, utilize your visuals, utilize your slides, your projection, your LED wall to communicate what your church is about. What's the message you wanna get to your audience there. Utilize lighting. Maybe it's low dim lighting. Maybe you're not blasting the house lights when they walk in. They feel kind of overly exposed. Make it feel warm and inviting so they can get in and they can just take that time if they're 5 minutes early just to kind of prep their hearts and minds, maybe just release whatever it is they walked in with.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's great. Number 2, obviously we talked a lot about video, but we want to give you practical ways to physically use video this weekend. Why don't you go through some of the reasons why?
So studies upon studies have confirmed that visual memories are not only more accurate, but also last longer in an online world. Video content is king. Like it goes back to that whole message that I was talking about. Like having a video, visual to tie to your message is impactful.
Yeah,
it brings people in to that moment. So it's king.
Yeah, and you think about it, we're already primed to receive video, even outside of a church environment. Many of us are watching YouTube videos. We're watching TV shows. We're watching movies. We're watching reels from Instagram and Facebook already. So our minds are already primed, and it's almost an expectation that our minds have to receive video. So when we walk into a church setting and there's no video to watch, it's like we almost have to work harder to stay engaged and to stay attentive to whatever the message is. And maybe that's just me because I'm so integrated into video. Obviously our business is surrounding video. So yes, there's going to be an element of that. But I find myself when I'm not engaged in a service, or I've lost some of my own attention, I wonder if video would help me stay engaged.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a stat here that just blows my mind. Over 1 billion hours a day are watched on YouTube. If you break that down and you think about why we are how we are as a demographic, we watch videos and everything we do, like you were saying. But that stat is just mind blowing.
Yeah, you think
1
about
billion.
It's insane the amount of hours that we watch. So we receive through our eyes more than our ears. And you think about businesses when they onboard employees. They don't just tell them, hey, you got to do this, make sure you do that, make sure you don't climb up the scaffolding like this or whatever it may be,
Right.
what do? They sit you down and they show you through video training format. At least most businesses do that to be able to communicate how to be safe. What is your job? How do you interact with customers? How do you use the POS system?
Yeah. It's crazy. I talk to pastors almost every day. And one of the things I'm hearing is they're hiring more video content people than they are graphic designers. Now, they use graphic designers for brands, for things like that, but they're outsourcing a lot of that because they need in-person video content people to make different types of video, whether TikTok, social media, stories, to give that message across.
Yeah, that's so good. So that they're recognizing the need for video. And if you can't hire a video person, I guarantee you there's a 16-year-old in your church that has a lot of video experience. Maybe they upload videos to their own YouTube channel. I would encourage you to put out the need to your church audience. If you want to take steps in that direction, don't be overwhelmed with the idea, well, now I have to hire somebody and I don't have the funds to do that. Promise you there's somebody in your church that is already uploading videos to YouTube right now.
Absolutely.
There's some stats that you can look through, but if you go to the next slide and you're looking at the beach scene here, the reason why we added this in here, because maybe you're a pastor and you don't have a media team behind you to be able to put this together. Well, number one, canva.com is a great tool. We utilize it. In fact, this very presentation that you're looking at was made in Canva, and it's a very user-friendly. You don't have to be a designer to be able to use it, so I guarantee you'll be able to use it. But the reason why we have this here is because we want you to utilize video with your messages. So if you have a verse, so in this case we have Genesis 1:31 up, and God saw all that he had made and it was very good. Instead of just having a still graphic, implement a looping video, because you might want to camp out on this verse, right? And you might want to go into different stories, or you might want to go into a testimony. So if you have a single image that is not moving, you're more than likely going to lose the engagement and the attention span of your audience, your church members. But by simply having a moving graphic behind your verse, what does that do for the person watching it?
It engages them. It brings them in, because they're like, oh, wow. Now, now they're seeing it, and it's moving, because they're like attention's brought to the center of that screen.
Absolutely. And it's not hard to find really great videos that you can utilize within Canva, or like you had mentioned, maybe you do have somebody in your church that can create content for you. Utilize some sort of video behind your verses, behind your 3 or 4 points that you have on a Sunday, and I guarantee you that your engagement level will go up 12% more. I don't know what the percentage is, but it will definitely go up.
It will go up.
The next one is great. John 3:16. We all know this one. For God so loved the world. And to have a visual, maybe you are giving a salvation message. Maybe it's a evangelistic type of a message that you're speaking. Giving the visual of Jesus carrying the cross, it should inspire some sort of emotion. And maybe the emotion is just thankfulness, gratitude, humility, repentance, whatever that is. Or, maybe you're trying to get someone excited. Maybe this isn't the visual that you'll pick, but whatever the verse is, whatever it is that you're speaking about, find a supporting image, video image to throw underneath the verse to really enhance whatever it is you're talking about. So these are just some examples. So we want to give you some resources. I know we've been talking a lot about visuals, a lot about social, a lot about different lighting and ways to utilize your environment. But we do have 100 free motion graphics. So maybe you're low on your library of graphics. If you can scan this with your phone, or you can just take a screenshot of this QR code, you can come back to it later. We do have some free motion graphics, courtesy of our friends over at Igniter Media. They have over 25,000 graphics for you to download, but they have given us 100 to give to you for being on this webinar. So thank you. Our friends over at churchstagedesignIdeas.com have allowed us to give you a free stage design ebook as well. So again, you can screenshot this and grab that QR code and take a look at that ebook for you to maybe utilize some of their ideas as well. I would encourage you to check out their website, churchstagedesignIdeas.com. A lot of really good stage design concepts that different churches have come up with and have put it in there, and you'll see some of our information on there as well.
It's so important to maximize the space that you're in, whether it's a business or a church. Josh, tell us a little bit about why that's important.
Absolutely. So I want you to think about your building. When you walk into your auditorium, when you walk into your lobby, maybe you have a lot of windows. You see that picture there in the top left. Maybe you have a lot of ambient light coming in, and it's a very airy, natural light space. Utilize that. Utilize that to your message. Utilize that to your stage design. I know I've been to some churches that don't have any windows. It's very dark, but they're able to utilize that to their advantage by creating a lot of environmental projection, having some side uplighting going around the room, and it really just gives them an opportunity as a blank canvas to utilize lighting and utilize warm up room lighting to be able to set the environment that they're going for. You can see the picture on the top right is actually one of our clients at the Brooklyn Tabernacle in New York, and their building used to be a theater, and it's really cool because they've been able to utilize that antique, very historical setting to their advantage. Yeah, exactly. They're known for their choir, but now they have some more LED walls, and it's cool to be able to see them utilize their stage sets to complement and to working with the space and trying to alter, the look of the room, the feel of the room. You can see some more modern spaces down in the bottom left that, they have some pillars on the side, or they're using some lighting along the walls, which is really neat. They have some down lighting, which is neat. If you look at the stained glass window, I love stained glass windows.
So beautiful.
Yeah, and instead of covering them up, why not use them? Let the beauty of those windows really add to what you're doing in your room. And, just kind of taking a look at what you have to work with. And, maybe you're a pop-up church and you're in a library, you're in a gym, whatever that may be, and you don't really have a lot of control of the room lighting. That's okay. Utilize it to your advantage. Don't try to manipulate the space too much where it doesn't totally fit and you're kind of doing the reverse of what you want to go for. So this is really important. We do have some other environmental projection examples here. You can see that plain picture there in the center is the exact same room as the pictures on the side. So they were able to bring the house lighting down, add some environmental projection. They have a lot of open space on the walls there to work with. Maybe that's you, maybe it's not, but this is just an example of how to use the space that you were given, the space that you're working with.
Absolutely.
That makes sense? And if you have any other ideas, maybe you have done something yourself, I'd love for you to put it down in the comments, upload one of your pictures, inspire those who are on this webinar with us as well. Let's talk about the lobby.
Yeah, the lobby's important. It's, when you walk in, it kind of goes back to what we talked about before, being intentional. So, when you think about the message for a series that you're doing, or whether it's a Easter weekend or Christmas, you're going to have moments because everybody wants a picture, right? So everybody does photo booths at Easter and at Christmas, but think about different ways you can do those photo booths so that they think about flow of traffic. Like, are those photo booths going to impede a mom from getting to kids really easily? But you got to have a photo booth. Think about different ways you can put it outside and change up your flow of traffic so that it becomes an experience, not so much I got to get around these people. Think about your lobby as being an experience when they walk in. We, at several churches I've been a part of, we do at the movies every year. And part of at the movies is, you walk in, you got popcorn going in the lobby, so the smell's there. You got, every person gets a Coke or a Diet Coke, and they grab it and they're holding this cold, ice cold Coke and popcorn in their hand. The kids are like, I want popcorn. And, and you got characters walking around that are part of the movie we're going to talk about and take biblical truths out of that movie. But it's an experience. Absolutely. It's something that just like the VIP experience, or when they walk in the door, they're getting this experience that's preparing them for the message.
Absolutely. On that same note, we talked about the DNA of your church.
Absolutely.
You know, not only knowing who your audience is, but what is the core values of your church? Maybe you're a very missions geared church. Maybe you're trying to build local community.
Absolutely.
Maybe you're trying to build disciples. How is your space communicating that message? If you're a missions church, highlight your missionaries. Maybe you have videos playing of, you know, churches that you serve overseas or missionaries at work. Maybe you have information about it.
Share your vision and mission. Put those up with vinyl lettering on the wall so people see it. It's loud, it's clear.
Yeah, one thing that, you know, I'm very passionate about is building communities as well. And if that's your church, if you have a core value of building community, building disciples, create spaces for that to physically happen. There's nothing worse than saying, hey, we are a community-driven church, but then as soon as service ends, people go right out the door, and there's nowhere for there to commune and just to have conversations. Be very intentional. Is that even a word? Be very intentional about creating that very space for that community to actually happen.
Absolutely.
You know, if you have a 10 by 10 space and it's not being used, maybe put some high top tables, put some chairs around it. Yes, it will take a little bit of an investment to make that happen. But if that's who you're saying you are as a church, create the opportunities to actually be that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The bottom right picture is a business. Again, if you are a business, this business owner is a print shop here in our local area, and he found it very important to have video playing in his lobby because a lot of times his clients have to wait while his team is getting prints or they're gathering materials to deliver to them. And it's just a unique way just to engage your clients about who you are. He's playing. I should have had video playing. We're not even doing what we said we would do. But he has video playing of his team putting a press. Now, we need to have a video of this in the presentation. But he has video of his team pressing the T-shirts, printing on the flyers. And as you're waiting there, because I've been in his lobby multiple times, I find myself watching it. Right. And I'm like, wow, that's really cool. I love their process. So the lobby is really important. Don't think of your lobby as just a passing place to get from A to B. Be very intentional. Utilize and maximize that space to minister and to connect with your audience. Number 4, let's talk about stage design. We're going to try to get through this quickly. And again, you can come back and watch this or download this presentation. But 3 best practices to think about stage design. Now, you've worked a lot with stage design when you were at your church, at Journey, at New Walk and whatnot. Talk about how important stage design is.
Yeah, it's very important. I think before the days of LEDs, like we would do different sets, like every series. So like we would build walls, we would build houses, fake houses, we'd build, you know, like a boat and put it on the stage, and the pastor would preach out of a boat, and you'd have all these props, and you see some of that, but a lot now has gone visually to LEDs or using uplighting. It's important because it sets an atmosphere. You know, we're kind of going back to the same theme over and over, is setting the atmosphere. But it's important because it's a visual statement, and it shows you care, and you aesthetically care.
Yeah, when you can demonstrate that you are intentional about thinking about creative ways to communicate the message or the series, you know, it draws them in even more. Number 2 is less is more. Don't overdo it. Don't go crazy with your stage design, because it can actually become a distraction if you do way too much on your stage. So I want you to think about that. Bring somebody else in, and, you know, maybe you, pastor, are not the person that would be motivated to do that, and that means you're not supposed to do it. I guarantee you have somebody in your church who would love that job responsibility to coming up with stage designs. Now, obviously have them run the idea by you, so you're not being surprised when you walk in Sunday morning and who knows what they have on the stage. But build up that team. You know, you empower those who are sitting in the pews to utilize their strengths and their giftedness for the kingdom. And if that person is gifted with crafts and loves building sets, utilize them to help create a series set for you. And it could be a simple one prop. You know, maybe it's just As simple like you talked about house. Hey, this is the house, we're building the house of God, and you build a simple house set on there. It can be whatever, but less is more. Think about that. And it kind of goes into the next point. Hint your concept. Don't be so literal. If you're talking about the highways and the byways or whatever, that's kind of your message theme. Do you need to put a car up there, or do you need to put a road on? I don't know. But don't be so literal with your concept. Hint at it. I know you've done a lot of stage designs. You've done a lot of sets. Do you have any examples that you can share with them? The church we attend, I wasn't a part of this, but it was really neat what they did for Christmas. They had a country Christmas type theme, and they took the LED wall and they actually built a barn, like just out of like 1x4s and like Luan, and basically had the corners and the shape of it, but the LED wall was the actual picture. So like it showed like a barn, but the barn was basically the LED wall that had the edging to cover up, and so it made it the shape of it. So just little things like that you could add to either projection or just to bring the message. Now that's not really what we're saying is less is more. That's a lot, but it got the whole. It brought everybody in to like this and warm, inviting thing, and it's really neat. And if you don't have an LED wall, don't be discouraged. Go to churchstagedesignIdeas.com, and there will be a lot of affordable ideas that you can implement. A lot of it's involving buying, foam balls or whatever from the dollar store, and you can make
Michael's is your best friend.
Yes, there you go. And most of the examples on that website give you step-by-step instructions how to accomplish that look. And as we wrap this up, again, if you need inspiration for what to do, we've talked about Church Stage Design Ideas. We're partners with them. We're with Refresh LED. We work with a lot of churches all over the country, helping them accomplish their vision for their church. And if that involves LED walls, we'd love to help them out. And so there's a QR code there to some design ideas. If you would like a consult from us at Refresh, we would love to just hop on a call with you and again, hear what your vision is, hear what you're going for, and just see how we can partner with you to accomplish that vision and your goals. We want to thank you for spending this time with us in this webinar. I really hope you took a lot of value out of it and you're able to take some of the tools and the resources that we've given you and just literally just put it into practice at your church or your business. It's been awesome hanging out with you.
Yeah, if you would like to know some more information about Refresh LED, you can go to refreshled.com, or you can scan the QR code that's right there on your screen. We would just love to hear about the vision of your church. Thank you again for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. As always, if you have any questions, you can submit them to me at glass@worshipfacility.com. and we'll get you the answers that you need. Thanks again to Refresh LED, to Josh Dominguez, and to Matt Laymon. I'm Gene Lass, editor of Worship Facility.